our guest this evening is Merle Temple, and he is hails from the great state of Mississippi. He is a Christian author. He's got a book out now called A Ghostly Shade of Pale, and it's now available, in fact, at merletemple.com. Merletemple.com. Go check out that website. And he's going to be talking with us about that in just a sec. He's also written other books such as Prisoner of the Lord, Prison Ministry Diary, Prisoners of the Lord, Prison Ministry Diary, and A Rented World, which is a novel. He's our guest this evening on Christian Talk That Rocks. Hey, Merle.
Hey, Richard. Good to be with you.
Glad to have you on. And looking at your resume, and we follow each other on LinkedIn and all that, and looking at your resume, you've got it's an impressive resume, but you've got a resume kind of more, I think maybe leans more in some angles towards business and even towards law enforcement as opposed to writing. So the question then is begged, what was it that inspired you to get into start writing books?
Well, I've written one type or another most of my life when I was in law enforcement and when I went to the corporate world. But it was quite different from writing a novel. I wrote technical papers and opinion pieces and wrote political speeches for candidates through the years, and that was all good and well, but writing a novel is an entirely different thing. It's pretty tough, actually, and I have learned as I went, and hopefully I'll get better as I go writing the sequel now to A Ghostly Shade of Pale. But the love of writing, I guess, is what drove me. I love words. I love the language. But also, I've lived 3 or 4 lives in one, and it's just endless fodder for novels. And some of the forums that you mentioned on LinkedIn, some of the authors are asked, where does your inspiration come from? And some say, well, I have a very vivid imagination, and some say, well, I meditate a lot. And when they get to me, they say, what about you? I said, I just remember.
Well, as I said, given your background, especially in law enforcement, I'm sure you've got a lot of memories and a lot of incredible stories. You must have a good archive of things to pull from that you can then incorporate into your writings and into your novel. Your current project, A Ghostly Shade of Pale. It's sort of like a Southern Gothic kind of a thing. I don't want to give it all away. But share a little bit about that particular novel, and I guess the inspiration behind that.
Well, Ghostly is set in the 1970s. It starts off in the early 70s, and there's a lot there for some of your listeners who may not really remember those times. There's some history there that people think they know, or have things have been written that it was this way or that way, and when they read Ghostly, they may find out that that's not entirely accurate. President Nixon declared the first war on drugs, so to speak, in 1970. And in the wake of that, drug laws were enacted, agencies at the federal level were combined, and states moved in to create state agencies to mirror the national laws. And so the state of Mississippi created the Bureau of Narcotics just as I was coming out of Ole Miss in the 1970s. I always say fresh out of Ole Miss, and I emphasize fresh because I had no idea really what I was getting into when I went into the Bureau. But those were some very good times, some bad times, and some very tragic times. But it gave me it was a rich time to draw from because the Vietnam War was still raging at that time. There was a lot of protests and unrest. There was a lot of divergent challenges that were hitting the country all at the same time, and they really challenged the self-image and identity of the country in many ways. And drug use in those days, I would say, was somewhat different than today, because in those days it was hard to separate from the protest that were going on. It was just an extension of protest against not only war, but the establishment, against the values of mommy and daddy, and so all of that really was a rich time and period to draw from, and then just so many things happened to us in those days, and I was when I was undercover, I was taken hostage, working solo undercover, and held for many hours. And while they debated on where to dump my body after they killed me, later, after I had escaped that brush, I met two contract killers out of Memphis who were hired to kill me, and what became just a standoff near Memphis. And of course, later, my men and I were in the midst of a heroin deal. We were ambushed. They had a sniper on a railroad trestle covering the deal, and when agents went to arrest the dealers on the spot, the sniper just opened fire, and a terrible gun battle ensued. And only by the grace of God did we survive that.
Has anybody approached you? You probably get this question asked a lot, but I'm going to be the millionth and one person to ask you. Has anybody from Hollywood approached you about a movie deal for this?
Well, right now, the Ghostly is being shopped in Hollywood by Jim Clemente at Criminal Minds. Criminal Minds, a popular TV show, took a look at the manuscript last summer before the book came out, and really liked it, and really was nice and very encouraging about what they had read, and he asked to be the one who would pitch it for me in Hollywood. So that's where we are right now. Whether that'll come to pass or not, who knows? But I can't think of anybody I'd rather have out on the front lines representing me than Jim Clemente, because he came into Criminal Minds from the FBI, one of their top profilers, and he's their technical advisor, writer, sometimes director and producer, and really quite an outstanding individual. Wow.
So they're actually in it now. Are they actually in the shooting phase, or are they still doing some pre-production?
Oh no, it's just the sale and the buy stage. So I think what they say is they feel confident that one of the studios will pick it up if they can just get them to read it. You can imagine they get so many scripts presented to them, but the challenge is to get them to sit down and read it, and Jim feels confident that if that happens, then they will buy it.
Excellent. Wow. That's going to make you feel really good.
Well, it does. It'll be interesting to see and to go out to Hollywood. And I joke and tell my friends when I talk about the possibility of me going out for a meeting in Hollywood, I always say Hollywood, my next mission field.
Yeah.
No shortage of opportunities out there, I don't think.
No kidding. Yeah, Hollywood. I've been there myself. Hollyweird is my name for it, and there certainly is definitely a huge need out there. Let me ask you this: if they do pick it up and they start shooting, who would you like to play you?
Well, I jokingly tell everybody I'm sad that Clint Eastwood is too old now to play me.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I don't know. I tell you truthfully, I don't keep up with the younger actors too much. I was raised on all of my idols, I guess you would say, are people like Eastwood and some of the great actors who are getting on up in their years now. But there's a lot of good actors out there that could play it, and so it'd be interesting to see if it comes to pass, and if the studios will like everything that they see as far as the faith content of the book, and that would be a deal breaker for me, regardless of money, if that ever came to pass. There's just some things that I wouldn't compromise on. When I first shopped the book around, I got lots of advice to when I was out with some in the secular industry. And somebody told me that I needed to just add some neon. It needed some neon in the book. And I said, well, how do you define neon? So they sent us a chapter back to me of my writing with neon sprinkled throughout it. And neon turned out to be the worst kind of four-letter words. And then there was the one that asked me if I could add vampires to it, that vampires were hot. And I told him I didn't think so.
We're speaking with our guest this evening, Merle Temple. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy. I like him already. Check him out at merletemple.com. Also, Bethel Road Publications for his book, A Ghostly Shade of Pale, also at his own website, and also Amazon.com. I'm glad to hear you say that you'll stand on those principles. I think, it seems like Hollywood, we had this miniseries, The Bible, and of course the smash success of the Passion of Christ and all that. I think some, not everybody obviously, but I think some in Hollywood have woken up that there is a market for films that either A, have a faith theme of some sort running through it, or are very strongly faith-based, one or the other. That there is a market, and those films tend to do pretty well, especially when they go back into like DVD, Blu-ray, Netflix kind of circulation. So hopefully they would have sense enough to look at that aspect of your work as a plus and not a negative, right?
Well, I think you're right, and to be honest, when I was writing Ghostly, I wanted to write a Christian book that also would be appealing to some of the people in the secular market. That they would, the story hopefully would be so intriguing and so attractive that the faith message, which is undeniable in the book, would reach a much wider audience. And I think you're right. There are so many independent film producers who have shown that there is a market for that, and I would say in many respects I think that market is growing. So if that comes to pass, that would just truly be a blessing from the Lord. And again, it's not to me, I can assure you that it's not about the money. No matter what they would offer me, if they do, there are just certain things that I would not retreat from, because I want the faith message in the book to remain intact.
And I've just even on my show, I've had 2 or 3 already prior to having you on, authors and filmmakers and so forth who have their works are faith based, and there is that. I mean, I think it's a growing market, and I think some are getting the clue that that this will sell. Have you thought about, or has there been a discussion? And maybe I'm getting into territory you're not at liberty to talk about that. If you can't, that's fine. But has there been some discussion? Have you thought about maybe taking like this particular book or maybe that general theme and creating that into maybe a television show that has a faith-based? I don't know, I'm sort of thinking like maybe like a faith-based Starsky and Hutch or something. But you know what I'm saying? So, something along that kind of a genre, maybe set in the 70s, maybe set in modern times, but of a law enforcement thing with a faith-based edge to it. As a TV show, like a regular series.
No, that hasn't been mentioned yet, but who knows where the Lord will lead us on this. But that hasn't been discussed yet. And I think it could be a good miniseries. It's a big book, and it has many different threads in it. And people ask me what it is, and Clemente gave us the great recommendation on the book cover. And he calls it a big crime story as literature, and says that I weave a story so detailed and complex, yet beautifully sinister, that the reader is immersed in absolute reality. And those are kind words. I hope I can live up to them. But I think it could be a really good miniseries. But who knows? We'll see where it goes.
There you go. Well, it'll, like you say, it's in God's hands. Let's take a break here, Merle. And when we come back, I want to continue talking with you about some of this, and I also want to get your feelings maybe on just a little bit of some of what's been going on in the world today, and the Department of Justice. They've been doing some things, and the IRS, and so on and so forth. I want to kind of get your perspective from a Christian perspective, of course, being an old law enforcement guy yourself. I want to get your thoughts on that as well as talking about some of your other books too. We're talking with our guest this evening. His name is Merle Temple. Check him out while we go to break here at merletemple.com. That's MERLETEMPLE, merletemple.com. Also, BethelRoadPublications.com. He's the author of A Ghostly Shade of Pale, and who knows, maybe coming to silver screen here very soon. Our guest this evening is Merle Temple. He's from Ole Miss. Graduated from Ole Miss back in the day. If you're from one of the rival schools, don't hold it against him. He's a good guy. Okay, those rivalries get pretty hot. Down here in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama corridor. Football in this part of the world is religion, so don't just relax, all right? And he's our guest, so be nice. He's the author of Go See Shade of Pale. He's also got a background, an incredible background in law enforcement. He's also a Christian author as well. He's written books such as Prisoners of the Lord, Prison Ministry Diary, and A Rented World, which is also a novel. Merle, I want to kind of just pick your brain for a moment before we move on, just a little bit, get your thoughts maybe if you can. It seems to me there is a trend that has been happening. It's not just with our federal government, but I think it's with local and state governments as well. But it's a trend that bugs me, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on this, as being a former law enforcement guy, where it seems like, especially with the Patriot Act and these other things, that some of those constitutional rights are kind of getting nibbled at, brushed aside, and we're moving towards what appears to be almost like a police state in some ways. And I'm not trying to paint with broad brushstrokes. There's a lot of great cops, a lot of great law enforcement out there, and I know some. And I'm a pro-law enforcement guy. But it seems like, especially on some of the federal level and some of these investigations and just spying on people's emails and snooping on phone calls and so forth without warrant, it seems like it's happening in a lot of cases, and without even proper probable cause as is required by the Fourth Amendment. Seems to me like we're drifting into some real dangerous territory because there's been a DOJ blow-up that's happened here recently. What's your thoughts on that, from a Christian perspective?
Well, certainly I'd agree with you. I would say that you'll see in the book, for people who love the Constitution, I think they will love this book because we actually, in those days, we believed in the Constitution and that we were not judge and jury, and that there was a reason there was a Bill of Rights. And some of the things that I see happening today just frankly could not have happened back then, and that it's come to pass in such a relatively short time is really cause for concern. The images I saw coming out of Boston with the paramilitary look, the armored vehicles on the streets, martial law, it's just chilling to see those things. And some of the videos I saw coming out of there where they were ordering people out of their homes with automatic weapons pointed at them without any probable cause. It's just chilling things to see, and something that I believe, as a person who loves the Constitution, that we should just never let our guard down about these things. Governments historically have always been really good at creating straw men and offering the Faustian swap of liberty in exchange for so-called security, and that's a slippery slope to get on.
Oh yeah, it sure is, and it seems like we're getting more. That's the line that we seem to be getting more and more. And in fact, I was watching a Talking Head show where this lady, who I think ought to know better, was saying, "Oh well, the primary job of government is to protect us. It's to protect us. It's to be there to protect us." And I thought, no, ma'am. Primary job of government first, in my opinion, is to protect your liberties. To guard your liberties, because you swear oaths when you're in government, law enforcement, and so forth, to uphold the Constitution, to uphold the laws of the land. And these people are running roughshod, it seems like, in some cases, in some instances, right over top of those rights, and just brushing them aside. And it seems like it's such an epidemic, and especially on the federal scale, but even sometimes on the state and local scale, you see some pretty weird stuff going on, especially with all this drone stuff kind of happening now, spying on people and so forth. But it seems like it's just becoming more commonplace, and it almost seems to me, Merle, like people are just kind of shrugging and going, "Oh well, that's just the way it is."
It does seem that way. I think we've just become numb to it over a period of time. At least some have, and there was a time when if any of this had happened, the media would be up in arms, and you just don't see that anymore until just recently, in the last week or two, with these overreaches about getting phone records of the press and so forth and so on. And once there began, it seems that once there is ever a crack in the dam and the water really does start coming out, then it just starts a flood, and that's that's what it's been for the last 2 or 3 weeks, just one revelation after another, and it just gets worse and worse, and you see apparently or allegedly groups targeted by government agencies simply because of their political beliefs, and at least on the surface it appears that there are some people who believe in using the power of government to squash your opposition politically, and that's just really a frightening scenario, much like George Orwell wrote about in 1984.
Well, and what's troubled me too, on top of just the obvious, is it seems like with some of the digging around I've been doing for my show, and in fact I talked to a spokesperson last week, I think it was Wednesday, at the Thomas More Society. They had a couple of, a pro-life group and then a Christian group from here in Texas that they were representing, that back in '09 were really given the runaround by the IRS. So it looks like the IRS not only targeted political groups, but Dr. Dobson's come forward, Billy Graham Ministries has come forward. They're targeting Christians as well. Now, and that's what really is, I got to tell you, Merle's really starting to put the chill up my spine. I mean, this is like getting into, and Jewish groups as well. I mean, this is kind of like getting into almost Nazi Germany kind of stuff, Weird.
Well, it really is, and it's just it's a systematic a thread if you watch it that incrementally where there's a pushback against people of faith, and it's just very, very troubling to see. But if you look at it again, if you look back through history, all governments tend to, especially those that some would classify as the messianic state, to win the people and control the people, the first thing that they have to do is to separate them from Christ, and I think you see some of that going on now.
Yeah, you really do. Your faith, obviously, a big important part of your life, and you express it with your novels. I'm sure you live it as well. Have you generally speaking, has the reception for your works, I mean, obviously you're a Christian theme, has the reception for your works, what's, I guess what I'm asking is, what's that been like because of the faith that you
so far, I would say it's been surprisingly maybe positive and supportive. I believe that if you write a book that can stand alone on its merit for the writing and the story you tell, the honesty you bring to it, and what I try to do in my writing when they ask me, what is your style, I said, well, I guess I would crunch it down and say I'm willing to, and not saying that others have to do this, but for me to be believable, to be genuine, is I have to be willing to go back into my life and dig up bones and embrace that pain and joy and love and loss and grief and all of it, and embrace it in order to know those emotions again and feel that pain again in order for me to be believable. And that's what we try to do, and when there's nothing in Ghostly that's manufactured to be commercial, so to speak, I believe that if you write and you write from the heart honestly, that good things will happen, and I also believe strongly that the Lord will bless your efforts, and that's certainly been true so far. He's opening doors that Merle Temple could never open.
Well, I'm sure. And in terms of, I guess the reception for the book, I'm going to presume in the Christian market, then, on talk shows like this, TV shows, whatever, has been. It sounds like it's been pretty good. Is that true?
Well, yeah, it's been good. I would say that this is a different kind of Christian book, I guess, than the norm.
Right.
I think there's some things in it that that are very realistic, and that some people might want to look away from, but that's just not really realistic. And I think there's a growing acceptance in the Christian market for books that do deal with some tough reality, but deal with it in a way that is consistent with Scripture, that's very honest, that where the writer is going, and who he looks to for his guidance. And that's what we try to do in this book. And I think it's just really and truly launching right now. Actually, we have our official launch party here at the big bookstore here in Tupelo, Reed's Gumtree Bookstore. The same bookstore, I might add, where John Grisham started off.
There you go.
And believe it or not, the Grisham, his first time there, only sold about 20 books. So I'm certainly hoping to best Mr. Grisham's first signing here.
I'll bet you do. I'll bet you do by a long shot. And of course, folks can also I guess they can also then can they pre-order the book on Amazon.com?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. You can come to my site and you can buy it there. And it'll be autographed there. I'll autograph it however you want. And you can use PayPal. PayPal accepts Visa and MasterCard and all that kind of stuff. And I'd love to hear from some people on that website. I think they take a look at merletemple.com. They will like what they see. It really captures the flavor, I think, and the mood of the book. And there's opportunity to talk to me there also. Anybody who wants to shoot me an email there and converse with me, I'd certainly be honored to do that.
And that's merletemple.com, all one word. I'll spell it for you, MERLETEMPLE.com, merletemple.com, also Amazon.com, and then his publisher, Bethel Road Publications.com. Go to those websites, check them out. If you get the book from Merle's own website, as I said, he'll autograph it for you and converse with you, and you can talk more. Merle, we're up against the clock here, man. I could do a whole full hour and a half with you because I'm sure you just got loads of insight and stories to talk about, and I want to get you back on the show one of these days in the not too distant future, and keep me posted too on what's going on with the book, and if Hollywood does finally pick this thing up and start running with it, definitely want to get you back on to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. I will try to save a part for you in the movie.
I appreciate it. All right, you have a good one. God bless you, brother.
You too. Same here.